Hello, class. Okay, so last time I gave you a work to do on Po-Shen-Loh's method and quadratic formula, just applying the same, just using the quadratic normal formula, also with the Po-Shen-Loh's methods to see if you could derive the same solving for the particular questions I gave you. But then I noticed that on my part, I skipped an aspect of the explanation. Now, sorry, in case you hear my dog back, it's just trying to do his stuff. Okay, so I skipped an explanation on the push and loads method, which is very, very direct to our understanding of how to use it to solve. Okay, so I'm coming back again to explain it and to also make necessary corrections where need be. Now, let's start. Okay, so I'm going to start from. So everything we've done here, just kind of like pause it. Let's just refresh our memory back in the basics of quadratic equations. Something that I really skipped that I shouldn't have skipped that. So let's start afresh now with this. So I slide up my screen and we're still on Po-Shen-Loh's methods. So here is still on Po-Shen-Loh, Po-Shen-Loh method of solving. And let's take this question. Let's take back the original form of the quadratic equation is written as what? Ax squared, right? Plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Is that so? Okay, but there's also another way of representing this equation. You can write it in a more logical sense in how they built it up as what? Ax squared minus the sum of the roots x plus the products of roots is equal to 0. Okay, so what does this mean? These are just two ways of representing your quadratic equation. Now, if we already know what the roots are, you can bring it in to form a quadratic equation without necessarily going to the long method of expanding, multiplying, and the rest of it. So you can just build it in by bringing the sum of the roots into this part and find the product of the roots. Now, just understand this. Let me give an example. Let's take one of the things we've solved already. We've solved for x squared minus 5x minus 14. So let's bring it out here. We've done for x squared minus 5x minus 14 is equal to 0. So, and we found out that the roots we got was what? So sorry, the roots we got was this and this. You can see my circling. That's 7 and minus 2. Therefore, let's just write them out somewhere here. So we got 7 and minus 2. So if we were to bring them into, if maybe we didn't know all these things, we didn't know this, and they say build our quadratic equation using the roots 7 and minus 2. Remember, if we didn't know all this, and they say build our quadratic equation using the roots what? 7 and what? Minus 2, using the root 7 and minus 2. So if they gave us just this roots to use, 7 and minus 2, how do we build it? We can come down here and then we can assume that, let's just assume that a is a unity. So we can say what? That here is just ax squared. So okay, let's just assume that a is a unity. So let's say x squared minus, now this is, you can only use this when you assume that a is a unity. So let's say x squared minus what? The sum of the roots will then be what? 7 plus minus 2, right? That's taking the sum of the roots. Okay, x plus product of the roots are what? 7 times what? Minus 2 is equal to 0. So we have what? X squared minus 7 minus 2, that's plus or minus 18 minus, so 7 minus 2 is what? That will be 5, and we're having 5x plus what? 7 times minus 2 is what? Minus 14. So I think I should have used minus 14 because yes, plus, so plus times minus is to give a minus is equal to 0. And see, we're back to building this. Okay, now I said this is very important in knowing how to solve the Po-Shen-Loh's method. Now I'll show you why. Because of, if we are given a question, now if we're given a question, let's say this question, let's just try to resolve it again now with the understanding of what we've done. If we're given this question, x squared minus 5x minus 14 equal to 0, we know that the reason why we took plus As you know, I told you that your b is positive, right? The reason why our b was positive is because of, we know that if you say ax squared minus bracket the sum of the roots, right? The sum of the roots. Look at it here. The sum of the roots here are what? It is for you to make minus 5x, for you to get minus 5x as the sum of the roots. Then I remember minus is outside, right? Look at this. For us to get minus, this minus is already outside. For us to make minus 5x is already outside. But we know that the value we make inside here must be what? A positive value. Because when it is a positive value and it multiplies the negative value, it still remains what? Negative. You get that? That's why we know that this b here has to be what? Positive. Because if our b is positive and it multiplies with this negative, to fulfill this sum of the roots multiplying negative sign, we will have what? A minus 5. I don't know if you get what I'm just saying. Okay, so let's check the c also. And our c must be negative. That's, we have to get just the same thing, our minus 14. Because why? Because we have just the plus outside, and we know that the product of the roots, for it to be able to give us this minus 14, the product has to be what? Negative. Because if it is negative, minus 14 times plus will still give us minus 14. But if our b here was to be, if our b we took it as positive, if our b we took it as negative, so as negative, and we say that minus 5 multiplying minus, we'll be having what? Plus. It will cancel out. So therefore our b had to be positive. Because when it is positive, then we say plus 5 multiplying the minus outside the bracket, and we have what? Minus 5. Okay, so that is one case scenario. So let's check out on that one again that we made a mistake in. Okay, look at this one here. This was the question we solved again. 2x squared plus 3x minus 8. So let's take it out. Let's just solve it here. Okay, so let me draw this. So we have what? 2x squared, sorry, plus 8x minus, sorry, I can't remember. Okay, plus 3x minus 8. Plus 3x minus 8. So let's take that off. Plus 3x minus 8 is equal to 0. And we did the first part, which was correct. That was divide through by 2. And that was what? X squared plus 3 over 2x minus 8 is equal to 0. And then the next part we did was wrong, which was, we said that our b should be what? We took it as what? 3 over 2, which is wrong. Why is this wrong? Because we know that if we're to use this formula again of saying that here will be what? That this part here should be, remember, let me just go back, that if we're to use the understanding of what we know now, that, sorry, it's not trying to cancel. Okay, so if we need to understand what we know now, that this part is the what? Minus sum of the roots. That's, let's write again, x squared minus sum, that's, let's put it in sum of the roots, and then plus products of the roots. Then we will know that we will need to find a value that when we multiply by minus sign, we'll be having what? A 3 over 2. Do you understand? And if our b here was just only 3 over 2, if we say 3 over 2 multiplying minus sign, we'll have what? Minus 3 over 2. So therefore, what is our b supposed to be? Our b is meant to be a minus 3 over 2. Because when we say minus 3 over 2 as a sum, multiplying the minus sign outside the bracket, what do we have? We then finally have this value of the b, the full value of the b. That's my plus 3 over 2. I believe it's now making more sense. Then our c needs to be what? Our c always remains the same. Our c is going to be what? Minus 8. Because we know that minus 8 multiplying the plus sign will still give us what? Minus 8. So always remember this minus and this plus that makes this a quadratic equation. Okay, I think, did we do anyone again? Let me check if we did anyone. Okay, we didn't do anyone again except for these two solvents. So that was where we had our major challenge. So now let's just take back one of the questions that we solved. Let's take back one of the questions that I gave you as assignments, and let's solve it again. Now this is a question, so I can zoom in now to solve it. Okay, so here we have what? X squared minus 13x is equal to 30. Now this is actually very easy to solve, so let me just pick the one that I know would have been giving people much issues. So let's pick number 4. I think number 4 is quite complex. Okay, so let's pick number 4, and let me copy it out here so I can start solving it. Okay, so picking number 4, we have that x minus 3. So let's start. X plus 3 is part 2 minus 2x minus 1 is equal to 0. Okay, so let's solve this question. Okay, in solving this question, let me shift my board this way. In solving this, we have that x, we can open this bracket first of all. That will be what? X squared, yes, plus 6x, and then plus 9, minus, what's going to happen here? When minus opens this bracket, to be having 2x plus 1 is equal to 0. Now, add like terms. 6x minus 2x will give us what? 4x. So we have x squared plus 4x, and then 9 plus 1 will give us what? 10, which is equal to 0. Now we can solve it from here now. Okay, now look at this. Remember what I told you again, that if we have x squared, it's going to be minus bracket the sum of the roots, right? And then plus what? The product, this is x, plus the product of the roots. Okay, so therefore this part here is our b part, and here's our c parts. So for this part, our b will be what? Our b is what? If our b is just 4, if our b is just 4, as we pick it like this now, we will say b times minus, what do we have? We have minus 4, which now changes this equation. So therefore our b has to be what? Minus 4. Because if our b is minus 4, then we'll say minus 4 times minus, and we'll have what? Plus 4x. Therefore these are cases where your b changes values. I don't know if you get me. So that's why that's the part I think I skipped out a lot, bad, which was my fault, so sorry. Now our c will be what? Our c always remains the same. So our c, if here is plus 10, our c will still give you what? 10, because now it's 10 still multiplying plus sign will still give you 10. So that's where it ends. So let's solve this one fully using Po-Shen-Loh's method. Now the next part is to do what? Find the half of b. So our half of b will be b over 2, right? B over 2 will give us minus 4 over 2, which is equal to what? Minus 2. Now the next part also will then be to take out the difference of two squares using this particular value of b we've gotten. So that will be what? We'll be having minus 2 plus u, which is the first one, and then minus 2 minus u, which is the second one. So bringing them into a new equation, we have that minus 2 plus u multiplying minus 2 minus u, it will be equal to what? The value of c, and c is what? 10. So multiplying this, we have what? Minus 2 times minus 2 give us what? 4. Then we know that the difference of these two squares will make it that u times minus 2 give us what? Minus u square, and that is equal to 10. Taking our 4 the other way, we have what? Minus u square is equal to 10 minus 4, and we have that minus u square is equal to what? 6. And so our minus sign can go out of here by dividing 2 by minus 1, and we have that u square is equal to what? Minus 6. Now what's the next thing we do? The next thing we can do is to take the square root of both sides. So taking the square root will be what? U is equal to the square root of minus 6. Now this is a part where I know I've not entered into teaching you, but since you're in an advanced maths class, you have to understand this. Whenever you have the square root of a negative number inside it, that negative number will turn to what we call a constant. It's actually a complex number. It becomes a complex number, and that's what this negative number turns to, an I. So it's like saying I root 6. Now this, I won't explain much of what happened here, but I'll just tell you this. So whenever you have this negative number, just take it out by calling it an I. Some call it a J, but I think it's preferable to call it an I. In mathematics you use an I. For engineering classes it's called a J. So you call it I root 6, and so that's our final value of u is equal to what? I root 6. Okay, so now that we know our value of u, what do? We bring it into this solution that we found here, and that will be what? So let's just move this a bit so I won't go out of this out of everything. So when we move it, we have what? That minus 2 will be doing what? Plus u. Our u is what? I root 6. That's the first value. That's the first value of x. This is equal to the first value of x, and second value of x will be what? Minus 2 minus I root 6 is equal to second value of x. So these are the two values of x. X is either this or x is either this. I think that answers the question. So let's solve one more before I wrap it up. Number 3. I'll solve number 3 and then I want you to try out number 2 again, because I saw that using the Po-Shen-Loh's method, it didn't give you the correct answer like how it would have given you if you were to solve using the quadratic formula. So try using the Po-Shen-Loh's method again on number 2 only. So let me take number 3 and solve it. Number 3, we have, let's just go up then. Let's go up. 27a squared is equal to 12. Okay, so we have 27a squared is equal to 12. Now, this is actually very easy. You don't even need the Po-Shen-Loh's method to solve this one. It is a trick question. Po-Shen-Loh's method only works when you have the b value known. But once you have the b value known, then you can skip right through it. But let me just show what I mean. So if our 12 comes over here, we have what? 27a squared minus 12 is equal to 0. You can divide through by 27, right? So dividing through by 27, we have what? That a squared is equal to, now this is already out, to make this a unity. So now this part also 12 in 27, what can go into them? I can see that 3 can go. So 3 go into 12. So sorry, I made this is minus. Okay, so 3 going into 12 will give me a 4, and 3 going to 27 will give me a 9, which is equal to 0. Okay, so let's come up. Okay, I think I'm entering into a different section. So continuing, we have this, and then now that we have a squared minus 4 over 9 is equal to 0, let me put it down here again. Minus 4 over 9 is equal to 0. What's the next thing we have to do here? The next thing we have to do is to look for the b value, right? But remember, I told you that there's no b value. The b value is actually 0. So if I was to write this thing in the form I just showed you here, we have that our x squared, we have our x squared. Okay, let's call this one an a squared now, since the variable has changed to a. So we have our a squared minus the sum of the roots plus the product of the roots. So here is, so this is plus the product of the roots. So this is sum having ending with an a. So here we know that our b value here will be 0 entirely, because 0 multiplying whatever value will give you 0, and then this part entirely is out of the equation. But our c value here is what? Minus 4 over 9, which I told you we always maintain the sign it's carrying. Therefore, we know that we'll take this half of our c, right, half of our b. So you see that as far as we cannot find the b value, then this, in this particular case, it cannot work. So once it cannot work, what do? You just solve it normally. That's what I expected you to have seen out, that you just solve it normally. So since our b value is unknown, therefore you cannot apply fully the Po-Shen-Loh's method. You just solve it normally using the normal way of solving quadratic equations that the b value is unknown. So rather than going through any serious hassle, you can just take this over back. A squared is equal to 4 over 9. That's what I do. I took this one over here again, and then you just find the square root of both sides, and find the square root of both sides. Let's shift this so my head will not block it. Find the square root of both sides. We have that our a is equal to the plus or minus square root of what? 4 over 9, and that is equal to plus or minus 2 over 3, and that's the answer for our value of a. So we know that our a is either what? 2 over 3, or is either what? Minus 2 over 3, and that's it. So if you have any more questions, again, you can drop it in the comment section. I expect maybe more questions in case I didn't really say something very well, and I'll come back again to explain it very well. Thank you.